In ancient Greece, people had many gods. This kind of religion is called polytheism. Polytheism means belief in many gods. The people of ancient Greece did not think that their gods were far away and hard to know. They thought that the gods had bodies like human bodies. The gods could walk, speak, eat, sleep, and fight. They could feel love, hate, joy, fear, anger, and sadness. In this way, Greek gods were like people, but they were much stronger and lived much longer. The Greek gods did not always do good things. Sometimes they helped people. Sometimes they were kind. But sometimes they were angry, proud, or jealous. They could make trouble for people. Greek people told many stories about these gods. These stories are called Greek mythology. Mythology means old stories about gods, heroes, and the beginning of the world. The most famous Greek gods lived on Mount Olympus. Mount Olympus is a very high mountain in Greece. The main gods are called the 12 Olympians. Zeus was the king of the gods. He was the god of the sky and thunder. Hera was his wife. She was the goddess of marriage and family. Poseidon was the god of the sea. Athena was the goddess of wisdom and war. Aphrodite was the goddess of love and beauty. Ares was the god of war. Hermes was the messenger of the gods. Demeter was the goddess of farming and food. Hephaestus was the god of fire and metalwork. Artemis was the goddess of the moon, the hunt, and wild animals. Apollo was also one of the 12 Olympians. Apollo was the god of the sun, music, art, and prophecy. Prophecy means words about what may happen in the future. Apollo was a very important god in ancient Greece. People thought that he could tell them the will of the gods. They wanted to know what the gods wanted them to do. The Temple of Delphi was famous for Apollo's prophecy. Delphi was a holy place in Greece. Many people came to the Temple of Apollo at Delphi. They came from many Greek cities. Some were kings, some were soldiers, some were rich people, some were poor people. They asked questions about war, marriage, travel, farming, and the future. At Delphi, a woman called the Pythia gave the words of Apollo. The Pythia sat in the temple and spoke strange words. Priests listened to her words and told the visitors what Apollo's message was. Sometimes the message was not clear. A person could understand it in more than one way. Still, many Greek people believed that Delphi was a very important place. Greek people also loved poems, stories, music, and plays. Poetry was very important in ancient Greece. Before many people could read books, they listened to poems. Poets told stories of gods, heroes, war, and travel. People learned about their past through these poems. Homer was the greatest poet of ancient Greece. We do not know many clear facts about his life. Some people even ask if one person named Homer wrote all the poems. But the name Homer is connected with two great epic poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey. An epic is a long poem about great people and great events. The Iliad is about the Trojan War. The Trojan War was a long war between the Greeks and the people of Troy. Troy was a city in Asia Minor, near the sea. Asia Minor is a large land area to the east of Greece. Today, much of Asia Minor is in Turkey. The Iliad does not tell the whole story of the Trojan War. It tells about a short time near the end of the war. The main Greek hero in the Iliad is Achilles. Achilles was a great fighter. He was strong, fast, and brave. But he was also proud and angry. In the poem, Achilles becomes angry with Agamemnon, the leader of the Greek army. Because of this anger, Achilles stops fighting for a time. The Trojans then become stronger in battle. Many Greeks die. Later, Achilles returns to the fight because his dear friend Patroclus is killed. Achilles fights Hector, the greatest Trojan hero. Hector is brave and loves his family and city. Achilles kills Hector in a sad and terrible fight. The Iliad is not only a story about war, it is also a story about anger, friendship, family, death, and the pain of war. The Odyssey is another great poem connected with Homer. It is about Odysseus. Odysseus is a Greek king and a clever man. After the Trojan War, he tries to return home. His home is the small island of Ithaca. But his trip home takes many years. On his long trip, Odysseus meets many strange people and monsters. He meets the Cyclops, a giant with one eye. He meets Circe, a woman with magic power. He hears the song of the sirens. The sirens are dangerous beings whose beautiful songs bring sailors to death. He travels near the land of the dead. He also faces storms and the anger of Poseidon, the god of the sea. While Odysseus is away, his wife Penelope waits for him at home. Many men want to marry Penelope and become king of Ithaca. But Penelope does not forget Odysseus. She waits for him for many years. Their son Telemachus grows from a boy into a young man. At last, Odysseus returns home. He does not come as a great king at first. He comes in the clothes of a poor old man. In the end, he shows who he is and takes back his home. The Odyssey is a story about travel, family, clever thinking, and the wish to return home. The Iliad and the Odyssey were very important to Greek people. They taught people about heroes, gods, right and wrong, and human life. Even today, many people around the world read these poems. Another important Greek poet was Hesiod. Hesiod wrote poems about the gods and about human work. One of his famous poems is the Theogony. The word theogony means the birth and family line of the gods. In this poem, Hesiod tells how the world began, and how the gods came into being. The Theogony tells of chaos at the beginning. Chaos was not a god with a human body. It was the first open and empty state of the world. Then other beings came into being. Gaia was the earth. Uranus was the sky. From them came other gods, including the Titans. Later Zeus and the Olympian gods fought against the Titans. Zeus won and became the king of the gods. Hesiod also wrote Works and Days. This poem gives advice about daily life. It talks about farming, work, justice, and the hard life of human beings. Hesiod says that people should work hard. He says that people should not be lazy or unfair. Works and Days is a didactic poem. Didactic means that it tries to teach something. In the 7th century BC, a woman poet named Sappho wrote many lyric poems. Sappho lived on the island of Lesbos. A lyric poem is a short poem that shows personal feeling. It may be about love, beauty, sadness, friendship, or nature. Sappho wrote about love and the feelings of the human heart. Only small parts of many poems by Sappho remain today. Still, her poems are famous because they are beautiful and full of strong feeling. She wrote in a clear and gentle way. Her work shows that poetry was not only about war and heroes. Poetry could also be about one person's heart. Athens became a very important city in ancient Greece. It was known for its democracy, its art, its schools, and its plays. In Athens, people watched plays at large outdoor theaters. The plays were often about old myths, gods, kings, and families. There were two main kinds of plays, tragedy and comedy. A tragedy is a serious play. It often shows a person who has a great problem. The person may make a bad choice. The person may fight against fate. Fate means the future that people think cannot be changed. Tragedies often end in death or deep sadness. But they also ask important questions about life, family, justice, war, and the gods. The three great writers of Athenian tragedy were Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides. Aeschylus was the oldest of the three. Sophocles came after him. Euripides was the youngest of the three. Their plays are still read and performed today. Aeschylus wrote Agamemnon. Agamemnon was the leader of the Greek army in the Trojan War. In the story, Agamemnon returns home after the war, but his wife, Clytemnestra, is very angry with him. Before the war, Agamemnon had allowed their daughter to die. He did this because he wanted the Greek ships to sail to Troy. Clytemnestra kills Agamemnon when he comes home. Agamemnon is part of a group of plays called the Orestia. These plays show a family with a long history of hate, murder, and revenge. Revenge means hurting someone because that person hurt you or your family. In the end, the plays ask how people can stop revenge and make a fair system of law. Sophocles wrote Oedipus the King. This is one of the most famous Greek tragedies. Oedipus is the king of Thebes. A terrible sickness comes to the city. Oedipus wants to save his people. He tries to find the cause of the sickness. Long before Oedipus was born, a prophecy said that he would kill his father and marry his mother. His parents tried to stop this from happening. Oedipus also tried to run away from this future, but he did not know who his real parents were. In the end, he learns the terrible truth. He has killed his father and married his mother without knowing it. Oedipus the King is a very sad story. It asks if people can escape fate. It also shows that people may not know the truth about themselves. Oedipus is not an evil man. He wants to do what is right. But he makes mistakes because he does not know the whole truth. Euripides wrote Medea. Medea is a woman with magic power. She helps the Greek hero Jason get the golden fleece. Jason and Medea later live together and have children. But Jason leaves Medea because he wants to marry another woman, the daughter of a king. Medea feels great pain and anger. She wants revenge against Jason. In the play, she does terrible things. Medea is a hard play to watch or read. It shows strong anger, pain, love, and hate. Euripides often wrote about people who were in pain or who were not treated fairly. His plays make people think about women, foreigners, war, and power. Comedy was different from tragedy. A comedy was often funny. It could make people laugh at daily life, famous people, politics, and war. But comedy could also have serious ideas inside it. The most famous Athenian comedy writer was Aristophanes. Aristophanes wrote plays that laughed at the leaders and ideas of his own time. He used jokes, songs, strange events, and funny people. Two of his famous plays are Lysistrata and Assemblywomen. Lysistrata is sometimes called Women's Peace. It is about women who want to stop a war. The women are tired of seeing men fight. They make a plan to force the men to make peace. The story is funny, but it also has a serious message about war and peace. Assemblywomen is another play by Aristophanes. In this play, women dress like men and go to the assembly. The assembly was a place where male citizens met to talk and make decisions for Athens. In the play, the women take power and try to make a new kind of city. The play is funny, but it also asks if the city can be run in a better way. Ancient Greece was not only a land of myths, poems, and plays. It was also a place where people began to ask new questions about nature and the world. They did not only ask, what do the gods want? They also asked, what is the world made of? How does nature work? And what is the first thing behind all things? Greek philosophy began around the 6th century BC, in Asia Minor, especially in the city of Miletus. Philosophy means love of wisdom. A philosopher is a person who tries to understand life, nature, knowledge, and truth by thinking carefully. The first Greek philosophers often studied nature. They looked at water, fire, air, earth, stars, and living things. They wanted to find the ark. Ark means the first source, or the basic thing behind everything in the world. They wanted to know what all things come from. Thales was one of the first Greek natural philosophers. He came from Miletus. Thales thought that water was the ark of all things. He saw that water was very important for life. Plants need water. Animals need water. People need water. Water can become ice or steam. Because of this, Thales thought that water was the first source of everything. Today, people do not think that all things come from water. But Thales was important because he tried to explain nature by using thought and observation. Observation means looking carefully at something. He did not only use old stories about gods. He tried to find an answer in the natural world. Anaximander was another philosopher from Miletus. He was connected with Thales. Anaximander did not think that water was the ark. He thought that the ark was the apeiron. Apeiron means something without end or limit. It means the unlimited or the infinite. Anaximander thought that the first source of the world could not be only water, fire, air, or earth. He thought that it had to be something greater than these things. From the apeiron, different things came into being. Things were born, changed, and died. Then they returned again. This was a very difficult idea, but it was important in the early history of Greek philosophy. Heraclitus was another famous Greek natural philosopher. He thought that change was the most important fact of the world. He said that all things change. Nothing stays exactly the same forever. A child becomes an adult. A tree grows and dies. Day becomes night. Summer becomes winter. Water moves in a river. Heraclitus used fire as a sign of change. Fire is always moving. It is never still. It changes the things that it touches. For Heraclitus, fire showed the changing nature of the world. He is often connected with the idea that no one can step into the same river 2 times. The water is always moving, and the person is also changing. Democritus was another Greek natural philosopher. He thought that all things were made of very small parts called atoms. An atom is a very small piece of matter. Democritus said that atoms were too small to see. He thought that they moved in empty space and came together in different ways. For Democritus, different things were made from different groups of atoms. A stone, water, wood, and a human body were different because their atoms were different. His idea was not the same as modern science, but it was an important early idea about the natural world. These early philosophers tried to understand nature. They asked about the ark, the first source of all things. Later Greek philosophers asked more questions about human life, society, truth, and the best way to live. Athens became a center of democracy in the 5th century BC. Democracy means rule by the people. In Athens, male citizens could meet and take part in political life. They could speak in the assembly. They could vote. They could take part in courts. However, not everyone was a citizen. Women, slaves, and foreigners did not have the same political rights. Because citizens had to speak in public, speaking well became very important. A person who could speak well could influence other people. A person could use words to win a case in court or to make people agree with a political idea. At this time, teachers called sophists became important. Sophists were professional teachers. They taught young male citizens how to speak well and how to argue. The art of speaking well is called rhetoric. Rhetoric means the skill of using words to persuade people.
The sophists traveled from city to city. Many of them taught in Athens. They often asked people to pay money for lessons. They taught grammar, speaking, debate, and public life. Debate means a serious talk in which people give different ideas and try to show that their own idea is right. One famous sophist was Protagoras. Protagoras said, "Man is the measure of all things." By man, he meant human beings. He thought that people see and judge the world in different ways. What seems true to one person may not seem true to another person. For example, one person may say that a room is cold. Another person may say that the same room is warm. One person may think that something is beautiful, another may think that it is not beautiful. Protagoras thought that human beings are the measure of what they know and feel. Because of this idea, Protagoras is often said to have denied objective truth. Objective truth means a truth that is true for all people, even if someone does not like it or believe it. Protagoras gave great importance to human opinion and human experience. The sophists were important teachers, but some other thinkers criticized them. One of the most famous critics was Plato. Plato thought that people should not only try to win an argument, they should try to find real truth. He believed that truth was not only a matter of what one person felt or said. Socrates was also very important in Athens. Socrates did not write books. What we know about him comes mainly from the writings of his students, especially Plato and Xenophon. Socrates liked to talk with people in the streets and public places of Athens. He asked them simple questions, but the questions were often very hard to answer. Socrates might ask, "What is courage?" A person might say, "Courage is fighting in war." Then Socrates might ask, "Is a person brave only in war?" He might ask, "Can a person be brave when telling the truth?" He kept asking questions. In this way, he helped people see that they did not understand as much as they thought. Socrates taught the idea called awareness of ignorance. This means knowing that you do not know. Socrates said that he was wise only because he knew that he didn't know many things. Some people thought they knew what justice, beauty, courage, or goodness was. But when Socrates asked questions, they often could not give a clear answer. For Socrates, knowing that you do not know was the first step toward learning. If a person thinks, "I know everything," that person may stop learning. But if a person says, "I do not know, I want to understand," then that person can begin to search for truth. Socrates believed that people should care for their souls. By soul, he meant the inner part of a person, the part that thinks, chooses, and knows right from wrong. He thought that money, power, and a good name were not the most important things. The most important thing was to become a good and just person. Many young people listened to Socrates. But some powerful people in Athens did not like him. They said that he was leading young people in a bad way, and that he did not respect the gods of the city. Socrates was put on trial. He was found guilty and was sentenced to death. Socrates could have tried to run away from Athens. His friends wanted to help him, but he chose to stay and follow the law of the city. He drank poison and died. His death made a deep mark on Greek philosophy. Many people saw him as a man who died for his ideas. Plato was a student of Socrates. Plato was deeply sad after the death of his teacher. He wrote many dialogues. A dialogue is a written talk between two or more people. In many of Plato's dialogues, Socrates is the main speaker. Plato criticized the sophists because he believed in objective truth. He thought that there must be truth that does not change from person to person. He did not think that truth was only what people happen to feel or say. In the first half of the 4th century BC, Plato opened a school in Athens. It was called the Academy, or Academia. The Academy was a place where students studied philosophy, math, science, and other subjects. It became one of the most famous schools in the ancient world. Plato taught the idea of forms, also called ideas. The Greek word is idea. Plato's idea does not mean only a thought in a person's mind. For Plato, an idea was a perfect and unchanging reality. For example, people can see many beautiful things. They can see a beautiful flower, a beautiful face, a beautiful song, or a beautiful building. But each beautiful thing can change. A flower can die. A face can grow old. A building can fall. Plato asked, what is beauty itself? He thought that true beauty, the idea of beauty, does not change. Plato thought that the world we see with our eyes is always changing. Things are born, grow, change, and die. But behind these changing things are eternal ideas. Eternal means without end. The ideas are perfect and unchanging. Plato thought that these ideas are true reality. He also used the example of a chair. There are many chairs in the world. Some are big, some are small, some are old, some are new, some are broken. But people know that all of them are chairs because they share the idea of a chair. The idea is not broken or old. It is perfect. Plato's ideas were very difficult, but they had a great effect on later thought. Plato wanted people to move from simple opinion to real knowledge. He thought that the mind could search for truth beyond the things that people see every day. One famous story by Plato is the story of the cave. In this story, people are tied inside a dark cave. They can only look at a wall. Behind them is a fire. Other people carry things in front of the fire. The tied people see only shadows on the wall. They think that the shadows are the real world. Then one person gets free. At first, the light hurts his eyes, but he slowly sees the real things behind him. Then he goes outside the cave and sees the sun. Plato says that this is like learning. At first, people may only see shadows or false ideas, but through study and thought, they can move toward truth. Aristotle was a student of Plato. He was one of the greatest thinkers in the history of the world. Aristotle studied many subjects. He studied nature, animals, plants, politics, logic, poetry, ethics, and more. Ethics means thinking about what is good and how people should live. Aristotle did not agree with all of Plato's ideas. Plato gave great importance to the separate world of ideas. Aristotle gave more importance to the world that people can study around them. He watched animals and plants. He collected facts. He tried to organize knowledge in a careful way. Aristotle brought together many kinds of learning in a systematic way. Systematic means putting ideas in a clear order. He tried to show how different subjects could be studied. For this reason, Aristotle had a very large effect on later learning. Aristotle opened a school called the Lyceum, or Lycaon. At the Lyceum, Aristotle and his students studied many subjects. They walked and talked while they learned. Aristotle's school was a place for careful study, questions, and observation. Aristotle wrote a famous work called Politics. In Politics, he discussed the state and different kinds of government. A state is an organized political community. Aristotle thought that human beings are political animals. By this, he meant that people naturally live together in communities and need laws and shared rules. Aristotle studied different forms of government. He wrote about monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy. A monarchy is rule by one person, such as a king. Aristocracy is rule by a small group of the best or highest people. Democracy is rule by citizens. Aristotle did not say that one form was always good in every place. He thought that a government should work for the good of the whole community. If rulers only worked for themselves, the government could become bad. He wanted a stable state with laws that helped people live well. Aristotle also wrote about ethics. He said that people should try to live a good life. He thought that too much and too little were often both bad. For example, too much fear may make a person a coward. No fear at all may make a person foolish. Courage can be between these two. This idea is often called the golden mean. Aristotle's work influenced many people after his death. His ideas became important in Islamic learning. Islamic scholars read, studied, and explained his works. Later, his ideas also influenced medieval scholasticism in Europe. Scholasticism was a way of study in the Middle Ages. It tried to use reason and careful thought to understand faith, God, and the world. Ancient Greece also had important writers of history. History is the study and writing of the past. Greek historians tried to explain wars, people, cities, and events. Two of the most famous historians were Herodotus and Thucydides. Herodotus is often called the father of history. He wrote a work called Histories. His main subject was the Persian Wars. The Persian Wars were wars between Greek cities and the Persian Empire in the 5th century BC. The Persian Empire was very large and powerful. It had many lands and many people. Some Greek cities in Asia Minor came under Persian rule. Later, some of these Greek cities fought against Persia. Athens helped them. This led to war between Persia and Greek cities. Herodotus wrote about famous events in the Persian Wars. He wrote about the Battle of Marathon. In this battle, the Athenians fought against a Persian army. The Athenians won, even though the Persian army was very strong. He also wrote about the Battle of Thermopylae. At Thermopylae, a small Greek force tried to stop a large Persian army. The Spartan king Leonidas and his men fought bravely. They died, but their fight became famous. Herodotus also wrote about the Battle of Salamis. In this sea battle, Greek ships fought Persian ships. The Greeks won by using clever plans and knowledge of the sea. This victory helped save Greece from Persian rule. Herodotus wrote history in a story-like way. He included many stories about people, strange lands, customs, and old traditions. Sometimes he told more than one story and said that he was not sure which was true. His writing is interesting and full of life, but he did not always check every story in a strict way. Thucydides was different from Herodotus. Thucydides wrote about the Peloponnesian War. This war was mainly between Athens and Sparta. Athens was a strong sea power. Sparta was a strong land power, with a famous army. The war lasted for many years, and caused great suffering. Thucydides tried to write history in a strict and careful way. He looked at evidence. He asked what really happened. He tried to separate true facts from simple stories. This careful study of sources is called source criticism. A source is something that gives information about the past, such as a person's words, a letter, or an old record. Thucydides did not write history only to tell a good story. He wanted people to understand why wars happen. He wrote about fear, power, money, pride, and political decisions. He thought that people in the future could learn from the past, because human nature often stays similar. Thucydides wrote a work called History of the Peloponnesian War, but he did not finish it. His book ends before the war is over. Even so, it is one of the most important works of history from ancient Greece. Xenophon was a student of Socrates. He was also a writer, a soldier, and a man of action. Xenophon continued the story of the Peloponnesian War after Thucydides' unfinished work. His history is called Hellenica. Hellenica tells about Greek events after the point where Thucydides stopped. Xenophon also wrote about Socrates. His writing helps us understand the life and ideas of Socrates. Because Socrates himself wrote no books, Xenophon and Plato are very important sources for learning about him. Greek people also made beautiful buildings. Greek architecture had several important styles. Architecture means the art and way of making buildings. Greek temples were built for gods. They often had rows of tall columns.
A column is a tall stone support that holds up a roof. There were 3 famous Greek styles of columns: Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian. The Doric style was the earliest. Doric columns look strong, simple, and heavy. They do not have much decoration at the top. The Doric style gives a serious and powerful feeling. The Ionic style came after the Doric style. Ionic columns look more light and elegant. At the top, they have curled shapes that look a little like a scroll. A scroll is a piece of paper, rolled at both ends. The Ionic style was often seen as graceful. The Corinthian style came later. Corinthian columns are very rich and beautiful. At the top, they have many leaf shapes. They look more colorful and decorated than Doric or Ionic columns. The Corinthian style became popular in later times. One of the most famous buildings in the world is the Parthenon. The Parthenon was built on the Acropolis in Athens. The Acropolis was a high hill in the city. Important temples stood there. From the Acropolis, people could see much of Athens. The Parthenon was built in the later part of the 5th century BC. It was a Doric temple. It was made to honor Athena, the goddess who protected Athens. Athena was the goddess of wisdom, skill, and war. The people of Athens believed that she was their special protector. The name Parthenon comes from Athena Parthenos. Parthenos means virgin or maiden. Athena Parthenos means Athena the Virgin. The Parthenon was not only a religious building. It also showed the power, wealth, and art of Athens. Inside the Parthenon stood a great statue called Athena Parthenos. The statue was made by Phidias. Phidias was one of the greatest artists of ancient Greece. The statue showed Athena standing in full beauty and power. Athena Parthenos was very large. It was made with gold and ivory. Ivory is a hard white material from the teeth of elephants. The statue was bright and beautiful. Athena wore a helmet and held things that showed her power. She was not only a goddess of war, she was also a goddess of wisdom and skill. The Parthenon had many beautiful works of art. These sculptures showed gods, heroes, animals, and people in festivals. Some showed the birth of Athena. Some showed the fight between gods and giants. Some showed a great festival of Athens. The Parthenon still stands in part today. It has been damaged by time, war, and weather. But even now, people can see its strong Doric columns and its beautiful shape. It is one of the best-known signs of ancient Greek culture. Ancient Greece gave the world many important stories and ideas. Greek mythology gave people stories about gods with human shapes and human feelings. Apollo, the god of the sun, art, and prophecy, was honored at Delphi. People came to Delphi to hear the words of the god. Homer gave people the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad told of the Trojan War, Achilles, Hector, and the sadness of war. The Odyssey told of Odysseus and his long trip home. Hesiod wrote the Theogony about the family line of the gods, and Works and Days about work and justice. Sappho wrote lyric poems about love and personal feeling. Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides wrote great tragedies. Aeschylus wrote Agamemnon. Sophocles wrote Oedipus the King. Euripides wrote Medea. Their plays showed the hard problems of human life. Aristophanes wrote comedies such as Lysistrata and Assemblywomen. His plays made people laugh, but they also made people think about war, peace, and politics. The first Greek philosophers asked about nature and the ark. Thales said that water was the first source of all things. Anaximander spoke of the apeiron, the unlimited. Heraclitus said that all things change, and used fire as a sign of change. Democritus said that all things were made of atoms. The sophists taught rhetoric to citizens in democratic Athens. Protagoras said, "Man is the measure of all things." He gave importance to human judgment. Socrates asked questions and taught awareness of ignorance. He said that knowing that you do not know is the beginning of wisdom. Plato, the student of Socrates, opened the academy. He believed in objective truth and taught that ideas are eternal and unchanging reality. Aristotle, the student of Plato, opened the Lyceum. He studied many subjects in a systematic way. He wrote politics and thought carefully about the state and forms of government. His ideas later influenced Islamic learning and medieval scholasticism. Herodotus wrote histories about the Persian Wars in a story-like style. Thucydides wrote a strict history of the Peloponnesian War,
based on careful study of sources.
Xenophon continued the story after Thucydides' unfinished work. Greek builders made temples in Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian styles. The Doric style was strong and simple. The Ionic style was graceful. The Corinthian style was rich with decoration. The Parthenon on the Acropolis was a great Doric temple for Athena. Inside it stood the great Athena Parthenos statue by Phidias. When we study ancient Greece, we learn about gods, poems, plays, philosophy, history, politics, and art. We learn about people who asked big questions. What is the world made of? What is truth? What is justice? What is a good life? Why do people fight wars? How should a city be ruled? These questions are old, but they are still important today. Greek writers and thinkers lived a very long time ago. Still, their words, stories, buildings, and ideas continue to speak to people all over the world.